All right, so we have another update on the Senate Bill 712, mostly about media and different coverage it's getting. It's also, I found out from the second video I did on this that most people watched that video, or a lot of people did not see the first video because they asked questions of things I mentioned in the first bill that I did, or first video that I didn't mention in the second video. So let's make a third video, and we're going to clarify some things, and then we're going to go into a little bit about the media attention, as well as some other stuff I've looked up and found out, and bring it all to you guys. So basic rundown of Senate Bill 712 in the California State Senate. Supported by Mr. Jay Leno, big-time car collector, obviously former host of The Tonight Show, and he does Jay Leno's Garage. He also has his own selection of car care products that he does. What the bill does, it exempts in California 35 model year and older vehicles from emissions testing if they have collector vehicle policies. Now, I know not everybody's super happy about the collector vehicle policy, especially since a lot of companies do require you to have a garage, which not everybody in the state of California has a garage because it's very expensive to live here, and real estate is very expensive. Not every place was built with a garage. Some places were built with carports. Some places you just have a driveway. That doesn't mean they're not just used for car shows. A lot of people have cars parked outside that are just used for car shows. So hopefully we can get something going on that. I know State Farm, I don't know about currently, but when I did insure my Pacer, they didn't care if it was outside or not, and I still have that policy on that one, which is the collector vehicle policy. Now, this is the most important thing, and I mentioned it in the first video, and I didn't mention it in the second video, and that came back to bite me. This bill does not change anything regarding pre-1976 vehicles. They remained exempt, blanketed, just like they have been for about 20 years now. So that does not change anything. In fact, the old days we had before that we had a 30 rolling exemption, and then that got stopped by a bill back then. It kind of just came out of nowhere. Nobody thought it was even going to pass, and somehow it did. And the current governor of California then was Schwarzenegger, and he signed it. And unfortunately, that did a lot of damage to the car community here in California, and it probably took a lot of cars that were perfectly fine off the road, which was, that would probably continue to exist, or a lot of them actually got sold out of state. So that's what I have for you. That's your basic rundown of the bill. Obviously, people are going to say, well, why don't they just blanket exempt pre-OBD2? That's really what everybody says. It's probably the one thing that makes the most sense, but they don't always do what makes the most sense. This is a step, so we need to make a step and do this. You got to remember, this is the first bill we've had since 2021 to update the smog exemption year for classic vehicles. So these bills don't come along very often. This is the first time we've had a big name attached to it. And as we're going to talk about here in a few, this is the first time we've had media attention attached to it. All right, and I have to mention briefly about the U.S. Senate bill again, the Transportation Freedom Act, introduced by Senator Moreno out of Ohio. It does, I've looked it over again, it's mainly for 2027 and later, new vehicles. That's what it says, and it also gets rid of the EV mandates. Now, it also does have a thing in there about, this is I think where the confusion lies, that it gets rid of all previous waivers issued to the California Resources Board. The thing is, the emissions testing is a state level thing. It is not a federal thing. It's not mandated by the federal government. They didn't issue waivers for it. Usually the way states' rights works is the federal government doesn't have a regulation regarding it. The states, it's assumed that it falls under as a states' rights thing, similar to states that do safety checks on vehicles. They have those safety inspection stickers. That usually happens in states where vehicles rust out a lot. So there's not a bunch of cars that are literally falling apart from rust rolling around. Obviously, California, our cars stay relatively rust free. So it kind of falls into something like that. It's like a state safety thing or a state emissions thing. But I think where the confusion is getting rid of these previous CARB waivers. Now, previous CARB waivers, there's actually a list of them on the EPA website. If I can find this link, I'll post it again. You go by, look at every waiver that has ever been issued to CARB. They are generally issued about emissions regulations for new model year, and this goes back to 1969, which I think was the first one when they were issued a waiver for the 1970 model year, and then subsequent years. This is for baseline for what the vehicles, for what the equipment the vehicles came with in those years. Now, obviously, they can't go back and change the way they built the car in 1970. So one thing that would come to mind is maybe they couldn't do emission. They would have to use federal standards when they do the testing and not California standards for those years. But that would be more something like a legal fight, or the legal people would have to figure out. But what you need to know is it does not get rid of the emissions test that we do every 2 years to get our registration fees here in the state of California. That's the way I interpret it. And that's kind of what I see. So there you go. Now we're going to go into media organizations that are covering this bill. Now, to find these articles, I'm not linking all these articles. There's too many of them. So, which is great for us because there's a lot of people talking about this one. Now, if you go to Google, I'm sure we all have done Google, and you type in Leno's Law, there's different ways you can do it. Leno's Law or SB712 California. Type in whatever that stuff, just type it in there. You need to go up on the top. There's a little thing that says news. You want to click on news, so it just shows you news articles. You can actually, there's a way, I think it's in tools or something, you can sort the news articles by date. And then if you want to go one step further to sorting by date, so as a more recent first, you can actually change the setting to only show the last month of news articles, since the bill was introduced less than a month ago at this current time. I don't know when you're going to watch this in the future. I think you can actually search by a wide variety of dates too. If there's probably an advanced setting, I didn't go into all that. As of right now, we're still in March. I think it's March 12th right now. You can still go back a month and you can see everything. Now you're also going to get a few articles in there mixed in that don't pertain to this, which you'll see if I show the video. I did a little screenshot video of me scrolling through. There's definitely a couple articles that have nothing to do with this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention what it is, but you find it. And one step further, like I said, it was to the last month. Now, some of the organizations that have reported on this, and this is not all of them, MSN, Yahoo Autos, Road and Track Magazine did an article on it on their website, KNBC LA, so Channel 4 here in LA, AOL. So speaking of a 90s, we're trying to exempt 90s vehicles, so why not AOL? I didn't realize AOL was still a thing, other than some people still use their email addresses. Haggerty Insurance, which we're still trying to get, they need to come up with some updated policies here. Men's Journal, Street Muscle, Times of San Diego, and then also KFI Radio. I think it's the Tim Conway Jr. and then whoever the other guy is. They had an interview of Jay Leno last week, and they did talk about the bill. It's actually pretty brief when they talk about the bill, and they have an old interview with him. I did put a link in the group, Californians for Classic Car Smog Exemptions, and you can actually you go into there. I put a link to that, and I put the timestamps for when Jay Leno starts, and I also put a timestamp for when he's actually talking about the bill, so it's very easy to look up on that website. And also there's an Autopian article regarding the bill saying it's a great idea and it's long overdue, but it also mentions the group Californians for Classic Car Smog Exemptions. So that was kind of nice. So this is the update I have for you. Hopefully I mentioned everything that is of concern to people. Do watch the other two videos I did regarding this subject. I don't mind doing a third one because obviously the second one brought in a whole bunch of more people who didn't see the first one, which helps us out as well. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you know when something does get updated on this. I'm going to make another video about it. Leave some comments, but be nice, because we're trying to get everyone on board, no matter what your political affiliation is, to get behind this bill and to hopefully get this passed so we can save some more of these great classic cars that provide a lot of education and a lot of enjoyment to the people of California. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.